the primary token models were basically we're going to give out a lot of tokens as a way to incentivize user adoption. And without being overly concerned about the downstream effects on that token and that economy. And frankly, for a ton of projects, that worked really well. I mean, there were some that had more usage than others. I think more famously, Axie Infinity, Stepin had really massive adoption. But where that type of model tends to fizzle out is that it's very growth dependent. There's kind of the growth carousel, and when the music stops and the horses stop moving up and down, all of a sudden, then you see that token crash because there's nothing ensuring that those tokens stay valuable as soon as everyone wants off. And I think what we saw in the space is that there's a ton of shiny objects, and you just can't you can't always depend on being the prettiest person at the dance. There's always going to be something newer and shinier. And so where we're really focused, and this kind of goes to your question, where we're focused is building token models that don't mirror kind of Ponzi-nomics. And where we think that lies is really how do you bring in revenue and use that revenue to offset any tokens emitted from a growth standpoint. And the key to that, what we think, and especially in these social models, is the original ethos of Web3, and this is probably where I'll drop an F-bomb, is a little bit like, hey, we've got our token and we've got our Discord, like, fuck the big brands, let's go, right? And I think probably the 2023 realization is, actually, big brands can be incredibly useful for providing value. Yeah.
We actually need them to survive.
Yeah. Welcome back, big brands. We went away from you.
By the way, the terms of that deal just changed.
Yeah. And, so we look at that in terms of those can be advertisers, sponsors, affiliate marketing. And let's be honest, big brands want to, if you can provide real value and users on a platform, big brands want access to them. And so specifically what we think you can do is, we have a product called Hotline, which is like a Web3 OnlyFans, is as users come on the platform, you can provide real value and ensure that, like, you're not overly providing growth incentives. And if you were, you can offset it with revenue, whether that's buying back the token, so that even if that growth carousel stopped, let's say you got to 100,000 users transacting on the platform and then shut off new users, that's fine, as long as the users continue to interact with the product. You're not dependent on kind of passing the bag to the next person in. That NFT that started with a floor price of $1 and then rose to 1,000, well, we need somebody to come in to pay 1,100 for it to make sense. So that's really where we're heading as a business, and as we think about how do we set our projects up for success in 2023 going forward, it's really looking at, well, what types of businesses that are better done tokenized also are compelling to larger brands.
Interesting. That's so I guess this kind of begs my next question, which is, what is the thesis here? I think we've heard a little bit about the way you think about Web3 businesses being two businesses, and the emphasis on the importance of the tokenomics, not reflecting Ponzi-nomics. What is the big thesis at SuperLayer? Why are you raising so much money to help and providing so much value to help these Web3 businesses grow?
I mean, I think probably the simplest example or the simplest answer is the way we think of Web3 is a redistribution of value from platform to users, right? So you take an example like Twitter, which to date, I believe, has had zero revenue share. So every second tweet of Zach's has an ad against it. You see nothing of it. From a user standpoint, if I'm the 15th user follower of you or the 15 millionth follower, there's no difference in it for me. And so the fact that Twitter captures 100% of the value on the platform that is really created by the interaction between creators and users is bizarre. I mean, I think that's the way the industry evolved, but that doesn't. And Web3 is basically saying it's not the way it has to be. Superlayer exists because it hasn't been done right yet, right? And that there's I think people agree with the broadly with the promise of Web3 and can maybe philosophically align with the fact that yeah, it maybe platforms don't need to keep 100% of the value created. And again, that changes from TikTok has, I think, creator funds, which are still a pretty small percentage. YouTube does some rev share, but it's really not long tail. It's really aimed at the most successful creators. Um, but the history of the internet is enabling the long tail, and so to date that hasn't been done well. Superlayer exists to facilitate that change and to help build the platforms that are going to provide the real examples of Web3 succeeding as business model innovation to create better experience for, for creators and users.